What if one single comic book could decide the future of superheroes? Not a big crossover event, not a legendary villain, just a simple business question. Would people actually pay to read stories about heroes with superpowers? Today, superheroes dominate our movies, TV shows, and pop culture. But there was a time when that future was far from certain. In fact, there was a moment when publishers weren't sure if superheroes were even worth printing. It all came down to one issue, one quiet release that tested whether heroes could sell, or if the entire idea would just disappear. This is the story of the comic book that gambled on heroes. Before superheroes ruled the comic racks, the industry looked very different. Back in the 1930s, comics were cheap entertainment, mostly filled with humor, strips, westerns, and crime stories. There were no capes, no secret identities, no colorful costumes. Publishers played it safe, sticking to what they knew would sell. Superheroes. They were seen as a huge risk. They were considered too childish for adults and too strange for kids. The idea of a man flying or lifting a car just sounded ridiculous. Why would anyone buy that? Most publishers just weren't interested, until one company decided to test that assumption. In 1938, a comic book hit newsstands with very little hype. It wasn't heavily advertised, and frankly, no one expected it to be a massive success. But inside this issue was something completely new. A man in a bright blue and red costume, a symbol on his chest, a hero who didn't use guns or magic, just his own strength, and a strong moral compass. This was Action Comics #1, and at the time, nobody knew it would become one of the most important comics ever made. For the publisher, this wasn't about creating a cultural icon. It was a simple sales experiment. Would kids actually spend their dimes on a comic starring a superpowered hero, or would it flop, just like so many other risky ideas? From a business perspective, Action Comics #1 was dangerous. First, printing costs were a real concern. Paper, ink, distribution, none of it was cheap. A failed comic meant lost money. Second, superhero stories had no proven track record. There was no market data, no sales trends, no guarantee this would work. And third, if it failed, other publishers would likely conclude that superheroes just don't sell. That single failure could have ended the entire genre before it even began. To minimize the risk, the hero wasn't even the main focus of the comic. The issue included multiple different stories, from detective tales to adventure strips. Superman was just one of them. He wasn't expected to carry the whole book. He was just the experiment. Then, something surprising happened. The comic sold, not just modestly, it sold out. Kids loved it. They couldn't stop talking about it. They wanted more. Newsstands started reordering copies, and for the first time, publishers saw definitive proof. Superheroes weren't just a gimmick. They were a product people actually wanted to buy. That one issue answered a million-dollar question. Yes, heroes would sell. And once that door was opened, it never closed again. After that single success, everything changed. Publishers rushed to create their own heroes. New costumes, new powers, new secret identities. Batman followed, then Wonder Woman, then Captain America. Entire companies, like Marvel and DC, were built on the idea that was proven by that one risky issue. Superheroes went from being a fringe experiment to the very backbone of the comic book industry. Without that test, we might not have superhero comics today. No Marvel versus DC debates. New cinematic universes. No billion-dollar blockbuster movies. All of that exists because one comic book proved that heroes could sell. Today, we take superheroes for granted, but their place in our culture was never guaranteed. It was earned through a calculated risk. That one issue didn't just launch a character, it validated an entire genre. Every superhero story you enjoy today traces its roots back to that single moment, one publisher asking, what if this works? And being brave enough to find out. So next time you're watching a superhero movie or reading a modern comic, remember where it all started. With one test, one gamble, and one question, would heroes sell? The answer completely reshaped pop culture forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into comic history, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more untold stories. And let me know in the comments, what do you think would be happened if Action Comics #1 had failed? Thanks for watching.